If you think now that life is a bit stressful, it's a bit too fast, then enjoy the spring, because it will never be this slow again. He's a guy who doesn't believe in plans, because he finds that plans can only do two things. Either they become stories we tell ourselves to make ourselves look cooler, smarter, or grittier than we really are, or they can severely restrict us. Get ready to welcome the futurist, Stefan Hyttfors.
So, I wanted to tell you a story to start. A couple of weeks ago, I was at the Bangkok airport, waiting for one of those midnight flights, so the airport is obviously not very crowded. I'm sitting there kind of by myself, on this bench, and this guy my age, he comes and he sits down right next to me, really tight, close like this. Me being a Swede, it's like awkward. I'm like, hey, how are you? He doesn't even look at me. He's on his phone, searching for something, on the floor in front of us. So I can see on his screen, all of a sudden, we see this red little monster. And there's some kind of fight started, there were flashballs and stuff. And he starts beating his phone like this, furiously. And you can see bullets and stuff going back and forth. He does that for maybe 20 seconds, 30 maybe, I don't know. And then he just puts the phone down again, stands up and walks away. I don't even think he saw me. So what's that about? You all know this trend. We heard of it for the first time last summer. It's called Pokemon. People are chasing for something in an augmented virtual version of the reality. So, and this is serious stuff, People got hurt, they got arrested, they lost a lot of money. Some poor guys had trespassers in the garden because obviously their homes were suddenly a Pokemon stop. It's easy for me, It's almost like I want to step in here and say, hey guys, there's nothing there. So, but then I thought about it, this augmented reality thing, this trend. The way we all use our devices today, all the numbers, how many times each day. We are all addicted to solving problems in the virtual reality, in augmented reality. So think about something serious. Think about money. What do you do when you want to see your money? Well, you go to the virtual reality. You go to the bank. And you don't see your money. You see how much the bank owes you. You also know they don't have it. There is nothing there. So, but you are doing pretty much anything for those green little monsters, just to chase them into that app to make sure that you see that amount. That's the way we believe it will work. So it used to be kind of easy, it used to be easy to tell what was real and unreal, what was right or wrong, but it's getting harder. So when I grew up, for instance, we talked about work. Work was easy. There were two types. There were the ones who wanted to go to school. Those ended up in work where you could shower before work. And then there are the ones who didn't want to go to school, and those ended up work where you had to shower after work. Easy. Now, if you have millennials close by, I have a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old back home. It seems like, no, that's not the truth anymore. There is this new trend. It seems like they don't work or shower. As a parent, of course, I get nervous. That's the role of a parent. So I'm experienced. I need to do something. I need to step in. So I can hear myself giving advice. It's like you need to get up, fix your hair, do whatever, and go to school, get good grades, get a good education, get a good job. It's like I have this recipe for the future. What if I'm wrong? What if they're onto something here? You know what they say, if you know some of them, YOLO, Dad. You only live once. Why are you so stressed, What's all this talk about growth anyway? Can we have a look at what's actually growing? I mean, as far as I see it, the only things growing for a fact is financial debt, environmental problems, and mental disorder. Are you sure we're on the right path? And you have that kind of tense discussion around the dinner table, They want to go to Burning Man. So again, it used to be easy. This is the way we used to think about the future, the linear way. I have a plan, and if I stick to that plan, I'll be fine. I go to work every day, and I do what I did yesterday, a little bit better tomorrow. Lean, things like that. Constant improvements. Constantly growing, 2%, 3%, 4%. A little bit different kind of what industry you're in, but this is how you do budgeting. You take last year's result and you adjust everything by +5, and then you have a coffee break. Well, why not? Again, not anymore. We talk about disruption. Disruption comes from inefficiency. Disruption comes from new technology. New technology looks like this. When I say new technology, I doesn't necessarily mean new gadgets like an iPhone 8. I mean new technology as in a new way to solve the old problem. It always starts the same. On the negative side, it's costly. People die. People shake their head in disbelief. I don't believe in this trend. It will never change the world, And then eventually it takes off. You have early adopters, and then it grows exponentially and outcompete the old solution. And like I said, it's very easy to spot where will disruption happen. Just look for inefficiency, and you will see it. So one example, I flew here from Stockholm. Flying back here, 100 years ago. That was new technology. Everybody was shaking their heads. The Wright brothers were experimenting, and everybody kind of knew those guys will die. Because, as you know, steel can't fly. Steel can't fly, steel can't fly, steel can't fly. Wow! Did you read the news today? Steel can freaking fly! New technology. And you have the early adopters, or the people with leather hats and goggles. So, wow, we are on our horses watching them flying. And then after a while, everybody flies and it starts growing exponentially, and the horses go like this. This is what I refer to as the ROI of the 21st century. Risk of ignorance. The risk of ignorance is deadly. You can actually measure it today. Currently, 70% of the companies on the Fortune 1000 list dropped out in a 10-year period. So that means that no matter what we think about the future, we know that statistically, 30% might make it another decade. So that means leadership doesn't need to live a decade. And that's the big challenge, of course. Also the big opportunity. But again, remember, when we talk about disruption, you don't die because you're bad. When you hear examples like Kodak, everybody talking about these examples. Kodak did not go out of business. They didn't go to a Chapter 11 bankruptcy because they were bad. They lost because they were the best, doing something no one in this room needs anymore. Big difference. So today, obviously, as you know, everybody can afford to take pictures. That was not the case when I grew up. Then it was expensive. If I would have told someone back then, when we were taking pictures like this, should we take a picture today? Yeah, why not? That was like a big thing, Okay, maybe two then, We have to have room for Midsummer on that film too. Today, it costs nothing. So let's talk about the blue lines. This is a blue line. This is the Bagger 288 excavator, one of the biggest land machines ever built. It can extract the amount of coal that fills 2,400 coal wagons on a train. This is how we grow, constantly becoming better, bigger, more efficient. The only problem with this kind of growth, where the blue line is constantly growing better, bigger, more efficient, is that we have side effects. One side effect, just in this kind of example with the coal mining, is that we can't breathe. So if you go to Beijing today, for instance, as you know, you don't want to check for the weather, like, is the sun going to shine? Do I need an umbrella? You need to check, am I going to be able to breathe? And that's a new problem. So maybe the excavator wasn't the best idea then. There are new innovative solutions. There is this Canadian company, Vitality Air. They will sell you air on a bottle from Canada. So they put 8 liters of Canadian air on bottles, and then they fly that to China. They have a spokesperson. His name is Harrison Wang. He says on the record, the smog is definitely our best advertising. Okay, I just used this example to explain that no, this is not a red line. This is not disruption. It doesn't matter how profitable this business is. This is still the blue line. This is not solving a problem. This is creating another one. The big picture looks like this. 7.5 billion people, one planet. Up until 1986, we were doing this sustainably, and now for 30 years, we have been on this red path towards 3 planets. So the gap between 3 and 1, that's the reason we will all face a lot of change, because we have to. We have to embrace change, because if we don't come up with new solutions on how to create more with less, there is no future. And the second reason we will see a lot of change is of the power shift, because today there is this new generation where anybody can be an innovator, and that was not the case in the old days. So that's the whole beautiful thing with the internet. The internet is a stupid network. That means the internet doesn't care. So anybody can go online and invent anything. When I grew up, this is the way a computer looked like. I used to show this picture to my kids when they were asking me before, why didn't you have a computer when you were growing up, Dad? It's easier to understand when you see this picture. This is a mainframe, a whole room full of computing power. So we went from mainframe to desktop. Desktop, remember desktop? Everybody shaking their heads in disbelief. Why would I need a computer at my desk and then later at home? And to be honest, the first computer I bought, the only reason I bought it was to get rid of Tipex. So mainframe, desktop, laptop, mobile, wearable, implantable. Anybody with a chip in here? You heard about it. So now we are sort of injecting processing power into our bodies. And of course we are. Think about it. We are the last uninformed generation. Your grandkids will talk about you. Poor grandpa. He didn't know shit. You asked him in the morning, how are you, grandpa? He said, fine. And I was like, yeah, but I'm kind of worried. What's your blood pressure? I have no clue. We knew nothing. Of course we want to know what's going on. Maybe not when you go to the after work, but One more thing that happened, not only computing power, but this invention, hyperlinks, connectivity. It's almost 3 decades old now, the World Wide Web. Here's the first World Wide Web page ever. Do you remember this site? Of course not. Again, red line down here. This is like Christmas Eve to 7 nerds. Rest of us don't understand what they are talking about. Today we know. What does it mean if we can connect all the billions of computers on this planet, borderless, with no boss? Well, it meant a lot. It meant that a blogger in Egypt can have the exact same amount of power as CNN. A lot of turbulence. And we started talking about digitalization. Digitalization, as you can hear by the world, it means dematerialization. So don't tell your kid the next iPhone for Christmas is too expensive, because when we were growing up, we had to buy all that junk. We don't talk too much about this these days, but this technology, digitalization. It's actually often deflationary. That means more people can afford to do what they couldn't afford before. And that's another problem. I don't have time to talk about that, but since we have a system that's dependent on inflation, it's a huge problem when we have technology creating deflation. We have to seriously start asking ourselves, the ones alive today, are we sure there is anything in the future that a human being will be able to do better than a machine? It's been 7 years now since Watson beat the world champions of Jeopardy. And I'm sure everybody in this room have heard about all the news from what this kind of AI technology means. And it doesn't stop here, because now we're entering the quantum computing era. This is one of the world's first quantum computers. This one is at Google and NASA in Moffett Field, California. According to Google, this computer is 100 million times faster than the computers of our time. So let's just agree, it sounds like a fast computer. And again, these guys growing up today, they will not even talk about them. You remember Douglas Adams, the science fiction writer. He said, as human beings, we have always had the same relationship to technology. Everything that is there when you are born, that's just the way it's always been. You don't think about that too much. That's not even defined as new technology. Everything they invent between the age of 15 and 35, that's exciting stuff, maybe a new career. Anything they invent after 35 is just unnormal. So when these guys see these pictures in 15 years' time, the first quantum computer back in 2017, what they will actually see is this. Holy fuck, it was just one machine, one room, that's it, in the whole world? Because as you heard, if you listened to Mark Zuckerberg yesterday at the developers conference in Facebook, now we are entering the augmented reality. So we will actually be able to get rid of the smartphones and just put on like an ordinary pair of glasses to see the red little Pokemons or the green little dollars. So this red line, I call this artificial intelligence. When we have so much processing power, so we can actually ask the machine to learn by itself instead of do what the programmer told it to do. First, everybody shakes their head. Is that so impressive? I don't know. Smart like a mouse? Did it do that? You know, I don't even understand what's so intelligent about. Bigger brain, like a chimp. Bigger brain, like a crazy person. Someone we would like to have behind bars. You know the line between a crazy person and a genius is not very big. You feel it too, I know it, every morning. Yeah, usually you say, the crazy ones talk out loud, the rest of us talk, silent in our head. So when we have built this machine, then we have created Einstein. Just because we agreed that Albert Einstein was the most intelligent person ever alive, it doesn't tell us anything about technology. Maybe technology, as Einstein, can self-develop. Go ahead, enjoy. And then we have double Einstein, double Einstein. And then it's quite serious. We have to ask ourselves, what's the future? We don't know. Have to be quite humble about that. We have no clue. So I wanted to leave you with 5 mega trends that will affect everybody in this room. Because this is our society today. This is you, this is your company, this is Denmark, this is Europe, this is the world. This is the way we are connected. First one, more with less. The red lines, the disruptors, they will have one thing in common. They will outcompete the blue lines by creating much more with much less. And that's what we see happening all the time. In Silicon Valley, they even have a saying. They say, competition is for losers. That means I would never go into competition. Then I would have to work my ass off every day for 3 or 4%. So I would like to create a monopoly by defining how to create more value with less resources. This is, of course, going to result in lower cost to consumers. But the more interesting part of it all, and the guiding light for everybody that is a leader, is that you will have to focus on how to create less costs to society. Because in the end, only the ones who give us more human well-being are efficient. The other ones are creating a problem rather than solving one. 2, the end of work. It's not about outsourcing anything to low-wage countries anymore. It's about technology these days. Increasing automation means jobless growth. And unless we start to acknowledge this and talk about this problem as it is, we will see a continuous trend of social problems and political turbulence. So that's up to us. How long do we want to keep on pretending that everybody is needed when everybody obviously not can be needed if we want to create more with less and if we have all the technology to do it? To me, the end of work does not mean the end of prosperity. The end of work only means the beginning of time. Free time, that is. So we will have a lot of free time. 3, peer-to-peer. You have heard so much about the peer-to-peer trend, crowdsourcing, crowdfunding. We talk about the sharing economy. It's kind of funny we talk about the sharing economy as a buzzword in the 21st century. We have always been sharing. That's how we collaborate. But you share with the ones you trust, and you use to trust a limited amount of people. With networking technology, with a borderless society on the internet, you can find more people to trust. And eventually you don't even need to trust people. You can trust in technology. That's what cryptocurrency and the blockchain and Bitcoin is all about. It's not about a currency as in what's the value compared to a dollar. It's about the trust network. Can we create trust without the need of a middleman? Yes, we can do that now. This means we don't need hierarchy. It's a revolution. For thousands of years, we have always collaborated with hierarchy. A few in the top, many in the bottom. It's better to be in the bottom of a hierarchy than alone in the forest. Up until now, we don't need hierarchy anymore. We can do things like Wikipedia. No boss. 4, we are becoming God. If you haven't heard about the genomics revolution, I urge you to read up on this. But the human genome, this is like the operating manual for all the parts in your entire body. 15 years ago, it was sequenced for the first time in human history at the cost of almost $3 billion. 2 months ago, a company said, we are almost there now, so we can offer you to do this for $100. In a couple of years, you can sequence your genomes for $1 maybe. What this means is that everybody in this room will have the power to know exactly what's wrong and what needs to be fixed inside here. This is the next trillion-dollar industry. And it's starting now. And we will start to, not only fix problems, but upgrade. Who wouldn't want to upgrade? We do that already. You think it sounds scary, to upgrade before birth maybe. That sounds really scary. But no one thinks about upgrades like glasses or Viagra. That's also an upgrade. Number 5, inward focus. Ever since humanity started the journey on this planet 200,000 years ago, we have been focused on fixing everything in the outside world. We have been fixing and building and growing and working hard. And look at us today. We have more than we could ever dream of. I dare say many people in this room have everything they ever wished for. So if I ask you what you wish for, as in a birthday gift, you don't know. Except from one thing, happiness. We're not satisfied. We're never going to be satisfied, obviously. According to the World Health Organization, mental disorder is the global #1 health problem of the future. People are suffering so badly, even though we have fixed everything in the outside world. The obvious trend to me for the 21st century is to turn inwards and start to focus on how can I fix this thing going on inside of me, in my head, in my thoughts? It's not about being an optimist or a pessimist. It's about being a possibilist. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stefan. That was really interesting. I was thinking when you talked about the risk of ignorance, like we said with the Stone Age, we didn't leave the Stone Age because we ran out of stone, right? We got a little wiser. But when you say they have to be aware of the risk of ignorance, how do you avoid that as a business leader? What does it actually take to be on that exponential curve?
We need a lot of companies to die. Because basically we are doing a lot of things the wrong way. So when you think about it, no matter if you're an employee or if you're a CEO or whatever, but a company doesn't necessarily live on if there are no people, no stakeholders, no one interested. So people don't need big companies. We believe that because we have 200 years of industrialization in our backs, but today, I mean, a big company is creating nothing as far as job security or trust to many people. So maybe it's not helpful advice, but I think first of all we have to be humble and agree that it's not necessarily a big and important, bold goal and vision. If we talk about purpose and all of this that we talked about today, maybe this company doesn't need to survive. Maybe we can, start some new ventures, some new things going that makes a lot more value.
When you talk about the next big step, basically that we have AI developing some kind of intuition. We talk about the human genome. I actually had mine done for a TV program.
Okay.
And the question which I also like you to answer inside your head is, we'd like the answer if we can do something about it. For example, I had to know, you want to know if you can develop cancer, right? And in your head you say, yes, if they can do something about it, but if they can't. So how much do we actually want to know? And can this kind of development be more helpful than we really want it to be?
Definitely. I mean, just look at the way we are addicted to, as I said, the devices today. We are not necessarily using all the technology to become more conscious and aware. If my thought, the last one of the inward focus is correct, then that means that we need to disconnect a lot more. I'm currently on a 1-month Facebook detox, and I feel that's good for me because I think things like that. So yes, of course it can be of harm, but in the end, I think that when you think about it, the most dangerous thing there is on any level is human thoughts. What goes on in your mind is always more powerful and always worse than what's actually going on in the real version of life. So you know the saying that there are so many problems that I have thought of that never occurred. So I think in the end, yeah, if I get to know more about myself, that's not a bad thing, because today we don't die from infectious diseases in our part of the world. Today we die from diseases that they have one thing in common, that they all depend on early detection. So it's a good thing.
Yes, before we head on to, I like to talk to the peer-to-peer.
Excuse me, I just want to say one thing, and you're going to probably experience that, because when you want to sign up for a life insurance or something, then that might be a bad thing. The insurance company will want to know, have you done that? And then you have to decide, am I going to say no and lie? Yeah. Or am I going to say yes and give it to them?
Mm-hmm. Good point. Just wonder, we have questions here from the audience coming in, and we have this one saying, how can I make sure that my kids aged 12, 10 and 4, this is from Margin, I hope I pronounce it correctly, filter the right information while they are bombarded within an increasing amount of disinformation? Wikipedia is wrong too sometimes, he says. So there, yeah.
Well, as I said, first you have to be humble about the fact that you probably don't know what's right or wrong. I mean, I'm not by experience the one to guide my kids. Then I always told my kids, don't let school interrupt your studies. You have to be a bit, I mean, it's nothing wrong to go to school, but don't for 1 second believe that they will teach you everything you need to know. You need to focus on finding something that you are interested in and passionate about, otherwise you will never be good.
Or maybe the thing that they're learning now will be obsolete in 10 years, right?
It will probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, so if they study language now and then I can just buy this upgrade and I know all these languages, that's cheating. Yeah, but I still know how to speak Chinese. So.
I'd like to turn to one of your megatrends called peer-to-peer. And in regards of, when we talk about, we don't no longer need middlemen. And I think for business, this might be really important. And when I talk about this, I think about the shadows from Lehman, the collapse of Lehman Brothers. If you say that trust is gone, and we kind of open up for new ideas with blockchain and bitcoins. To be honest, bitcoins have been kind of strange fruit. Maybe all of these very well-educated people know what it is, but for the rest of us, it's a bit like far away. So when we talk about blockchain and bitcoin, is it really music of a very far distant future, or is it here right now?
Well, both. It's here as far as in growth goes. I mean, if you stop, because most people, I would say, when they think about things like Bitcoin, they focus on what's the value if I exchange that to a US dollar or a euro or a Danish crown or whatever. And that's like one of the least interesting things. Bitcoin is so much more than a currency. It's a trust network, a decentralized trust network. And what that means is that, well, since I don't trust you and you don't trust me, if we want to do business, we use a middleman like MasterCard. Mm-hmm. That's how the world goes. And if we want to do business with someone in Tanzania, it gets even harder because we can't even meet or see each other, and we definitely don't trust each other, So then we need to have like a serious remittance network or something going, and it will cost us a lot of inefficiency. Again, disruption will happen where we have inefficiency. So this bank that I go to send money to Tanzania, they will pretend that it actually takes 4 days to send an email to Tanzania. And I will try to, accept that sure it does. Like if I would send an email to someone in the US and say, you expect it next Sunday because I've just sent, it's just ridiculous, it's inefficient. And also the way they charge doing it. That's not the point. The point is that all the people in Tanzania, for example, doesn't even have a bank account. So when they start to realize that, well, first of all, they need connectivity. Half of the Earth's population are still not online like we are. So when they have connectivity and a cheap smartphone, 10 euro smartphone or something, then they can become a bank and they can start to trade without asking anyone for permission, without needing any middleman. So we will not start this trend here. It will grow slow because here it's only for tech nerds, because you and I, we will want our frequent flyer miles, so we will still use our MasterCard, But they will start to realize, when they go and stand in line outside of Western Union to wire transfer money back home to their parents, and Western Union charges them 9% for the favor, they will understand when someone they trust.
And this will open completely new possibilities, because I'm thinking why I mentioned up Lehman Brothers is I know that the blockchain technology, which apparently was an anonymous inventor, came to life after Lehman Brothers because the collapse and the lack of trust. But if what you say is true, that means in the future we might have a society where we don't need financial institutions or banks. What kind of, let's say, disruption will that actually
Well, you
bring
see
along?
already, just like, because you're right, every time we had a big problem, a big lack of trust, then we had a spike in the use of Bitcoin. So last 6 months, if you bought one Bitcoin a year ago, it would cost you $200-300. Today it's like $1,200. That's because a lot of people in India, for instance, don't trust the value of the state currency because the prime minister just made some paper bills, illegal, because he wanted to have them, come on to tax fraud. And you see the same thing happening in China, in Venezuela, and a lot of places today, that the young generation, they don't buy gold when they lack trust. They go into cryptocurrency. So it will definitely pose a real challenge to the financial institutions, again, because they are creating a system that is not working very well for a lot of people. It's very inefficient. Why would a guy or a girl 10 years old in Uganda ever think of getting a bank account? First of all, they can't, and not until they're 18, and not then either because they're too poor. So now they don't have to. They can just go online, just like they chase for Pokemons, they can be a bank.
Yeah.
And that will change a lot.
We'll jump to another question from the audience, and it says, very interesting, will we even notice when AI surpasses human intelligence?
That's a great question. I actually think a lot about that when we talk about human beings versus robots. We do that a lot. And to me, it's kind of obvious. How do you define a human being when we gradually becomes machines? I mean, as I said, today it's normal to have glasses or a hearing device that's not freaking us out. If we would take someone here that lived 5,000 years ago, they would freak out if I would show them this, it's like, whoa, that's voodoo power or something. So if we think 100 years ahead or something, I think we will not define a human being the same way we do today, because we can, as I said, we can upgrade and change so much. There are even, experiments and thoughts today of downloading my consciousness. And if I can download my consciousness, maybe I can change my host. So then I can get rid of this when it's not working properly anymore,
Spooky.
Spooky thing.
Now I like to jump to the theme that I called new toys, because I've heard that the big thing right now in the Silicon Valley is mixed reality. So we've gone from VR, virtual reality, to augmented reality, and now we have mixed reality. And we're going to have a few screens of that. What's actually mixed reality? As far as I understand it, is that we can actually reach out now, and if I want to buy shoes back home, I can reach out and I can actually touch them and feel them and stuff like that. That must be, let's say, massive disruption in the coming years if you have to think like that as a business leader when you want to sell a product.
No, I agree. We will see so many things, and the speed and the change up ahead is so much more than we have been through. So it's very hard to predict or imagine. But again, we will need to think about the big picture to me. How can I actually help others to feel better? Because we're not necessarily feeling better if we are living our lives in a headset. So therefore, to me, it's kind of obvious that you will see an opposite trend today. You will see a lot of beautiful things coming out of technology. Maybe we can create zero marginal cost energy, zero marginal cost food, zero marginal cost education, a lot of these serious problems that not many people today can afford. The automobile industry, of course we won't buy automobiles, we will buy transportation. Zero marginal cost probably, So all the people in the world that today never can afford to go in a car, all of a sudden can afford to do that. Those things are opportunities on how to create more with less. But let's not fool ourselves and think that people would actually like to enjoy to just wake up, put on a headset, and be in this virtual reality. I think, on the contrary, I think people will spend more time, as I said, in reflecting. To me, I mean, people ask, where do you get your inspiration when you speak or write? It's by walking in the forest, by having nothing on my agenda, by talking to thinking.
And human relation, right?
Oh, well, if I didn't have that, then I would be suffering because we're social animals. Yeah.
Stefan, we only have time for the 3-for-all questions, the 3 questions that all of you will be asked today. What is the one characteristic that you believe every leader should possess?
To me, leadership is about seeing others. That's why I was never a good leader.
You were not a good leader?
No, I was totally, 100% focused on the things that I was interested in. I'm a curious guy, so I would never know when I've had some employees during my life, and I would never know who was pregnant, who was, so that's a totally disaster as a leader.
Okay, so keep an open mind and keep an eye out.
Yeah.
What is the one mistake you witness leaders, not the one you mentioned, making more frequently than others?
Being stressed by focusing on competition.
Okay.
Basically, your competitors are not going to be the disruptors. You will have to focus on how to beat yourself. So competition is totally, total waste of time.
They're writing down right now. If you should leave a piece of advice with the audience, something that's been an important guideline in your own life, what would that be?
Well, to me, one of the most important lessons that I learned was from a friend that did a lot of serious meditation for many, many years. And when I asked him, what's the takeaway? What have you learned? And he said, well, I don't believe in all of my thoughts anymore. That's been really helpful to me.
I like that. Stefan Hyttfors, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.